Welcome back to Structure Fishing. I'm jshell. This is going to be the last part of our workshop here. We're just going to recap things and have some final thoughts here. Now let's recap the Structure Fishing or spoon pluggers basic guideline. We said it throughout the workshop. This is the last time we're going to tell you. It goes like this. The home of the fish is deep water. When the fish is in his deep water sanctuary, he is normally so dormant, so inactive, he's pretty much impossible to catch. But we're saved because the fish doesn't stay in his deep water sanctuary all the time. He becomes active once or twice a day and may move towards the shallows. We're saved again because he doesn't move in a haphazard direction. He follows the features of the bottom that we call structure, breaks, and break lines. How far the fish moves and how long he stays active is controlled by the weather and water conditions present at that time. So if you and I want to catch fish consistently, whenever and wherever we go fishing, we have to control the depth and speed of our lures on that structure. We're so thankful for Buck Perry's teachings and sharing all the knowledge with us. I mean, Buck Perry made all of these discoveries some 70 years ago. Like I say, he's the one that coined the word structure, breaks, and break lines, gave them their original meaning and definition. He was the first one ever to talk about how weather affected fishing. He was the pioneer. He's the father of modern day fishing. A lot of you may ask, and it's a shame, Buck Perry is this great fisherman, and he is the best fisherman ever. How come he's not very well known? It's a shame. He should be very well known, even to this date. First off, everything he discovered is still relevant today. It hasn't changed. The fish have not changed. The fish are the same as they were 100, 500, 1,000, 10,000 years ago. They haven't changed. Their instincts are all the same. A lot of people think, well, Buck made this stuff or discovered all this stuff, but that was a long, long time ago. The fish are different now. No, they're not. The fish react the same to weather and water conditions. They move on structure the same. They use structure the same. Nothing has changed. All of Buck's materials and teachings are as relevant today, if not more, than they were back then. I think let's talk about why Buck Perry isn't very well known. First off, he was a pretty modest guy. He didn't rely on fishing as a full time. I mean, he was a genius. He made a lot of money manufacturing various different things. I wish he would have made a biography of himself, because what the guy has accomplished is just insane if you looked at everything the guy's done. And fishing, even though it was a major thing for the fishing world, and don't get me wrong, Buck enjoyed fishing, but it wasn't his entire life. He found out all these facts and found out what it took to catch fish consistently, and the tools weren't available at that time, so he created a lure that he called a spoon plug. He created no bow fishing line. He created a short rod that was stiff, and he made all these things. But he didn't rely on that for his income. Luckily for us, he made a book followed up by a home study course, and his attitude pretty much was, here's the information. If you want it, take it. He had a couple of people that worked for him on the fishing side of things throughout the years. His first apprentice, if you want to call that, was Terry O'Malley, one of the top fishermen in the world. And after Terry's tenure working for Buck, he picked up Don Dixon started working for him for about 10 years until he went off on his own. But just why Buck Perry isn't a household name, it's a shame, because he should be. And I think a couple of reasons why I think that maybe he's not as well known, or that people, when they hear, first off, Buck created this whole philosophy, everything we talked about in this workshop. Buck has a diagram, a picture where it's a wheel, and there's all these different spokes. One spoke is the home study course. Then you got the basic movements of fish. Then you've got controls and tools. You've got structure. You got weather. You got presentation. You got lake types. You got mapping interpretation. You got everything there as a spoke. And if you take one thing out, it's not going to be a circle anymore. It's going to be a bumpy ride. But he created this entire philosophy of successful fishing, and he called it spoon plugging. And then he created a lure to utilize all this information because there weren't any lures out there that allowed him to control his depth and speed. So he invented a lure, and he called that lure a spoon plug. And I think probably the biggest misconception that people have why spoon plugging or buck teachings never became very popular is because everybody associated the term spoon plugging as someone that goes out and mostly trolls a spoon plug. That's not the case at all. The buck's definition of spoon plugging was all of his teachings to become a successful fisherman. And then he later created a tool to help you utilize this stuff, and he called it a spoon plug. So you've got spoon plugging, the total concept for successful fishing, and spoon plug, the lure. And a lot of people think that spoon plugging is just someone that uses the lure exclusively. And most people that find out about Buck's teachings, that go through the workshop, read his book, read his home study course, and they go out and they get spoon plugs, and they start trolling and learn the waters, and they start catching fish like never before. They have so much success trolling, catching fish, that's all they do. I mean, they love catching the fish by trolling, and unfortunately, a big percentage or group of those people that go out there and read his book and information, once again, have so much success trolling that they get locked in, and that's all they do is troll. And they enjoy it and they like it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But unfortunately, I think a lot of people then associated the term spoon plugging with someone that that does nothing but trolls spoon plugs. And like I say, a lot of fishermen that go out there and start this, they have so much success on the troll that that's all they do, and they don't take it to the next level, which is putting that anchor down and making it and casting. Is like Buck has made every big catch that a structure fisherman has ever made. Buck Perry and everybody else, they'll all tell you the same thing. It's been made on the cast. You locate the school of fish on the troll, you anchor down, you pinpoint where those fish are, and then you cast to them. So I think that, unfortunately, a lot of people associate the term spoon plugging with a guy that just trolls. That's not the case. You got to take the whole concept of everything. You got to know, you got to be a good troller, but then you've got to be a good caster. You got to know where to cast, when to cast, how to position the boat to cast. But I think, unfortunately, a lot of people associate the term spoon plugging with just trolling, and it's not just trolling. It's much more than that. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons why the term spoon plugging never caught on with fishermen. A lot of in Buck's materials in his writings, you'll see him say spoon plugging, and then in parentheses or after it, he'll say structure fishing. When he's talking about spoon plugging, we're talking about structure fishing. For you to fully get the most out of Buck's materials, you have to have, I think the biggest thing is a desire to learn. You have to have a big desire to learn and a desire to catch fish. Without that, Buck's materials, as you read the home study course and the book, it's not going to make as much sense or stay with you as much unless you have a big desire to learn. You have to have a desire to learn and a desire to improve your fishing, to improve your results on the water. Then you'll get to the next level, and this stuff will become a lot easier when you're on the water. I think in my opinion, I think the biggest mistake that the average fisherman makes, that first thing he can improve on is his speed control. Every time I take someone out there fishing for the first time, they're amazed. If we're fishing in the summer, when the fish are at their highest activity period, they're amazed about how fast you can go and catch a fish. And I personally believe that at least half the time, if not 90% of the time, when you're out fishing and you come back without making a good catch, it's due to speed control. And we talked earlier when we talked in the workshop about controls. We had a couple different stories about speed control. One story on the extreme slow side when Buck was up fishing with Don was fishing with Buck up in Lake Pepin, and they had to just barely drag that jig on the bottom. So when I was fishing this lake in central Illinois, Coffeen Lake, where I had my 15-horse motor 3/4 open, probably going 7-8 miles an hour. But speed control, in my opinion, is the biggest reason why people don't catch fish. And the second biggest reason why the average fisherman doesn't catch fish is because you're not fishing on the bottom. Remember we said in presentation of lures, when we're fishing the shallows, we're fishing water from the shoreline, from the surface down to 8 to 10 feet. But once we fish deeper than 8 to 10 feet, we want to concentrate on the bottom only. And I think that's probably the second biggest thing why the average fisherman doesn't catch fish is he's got to concentrate on the bottom. I want to play this little clip from you. This is an interview that Midwest Outdoors did with Lindner about a year ago. And L talks about, I'm going to play two clips here. L talks about spoon plugging, about meeting, I think, or hearing about Buck Perry. And when he first read his information, you'll hear him say that it just was a mind-opening experience and that he started catching fish like never before when he got presented the Buck's material. And then you're going to hear Al say about the Lindner rig and why that was so successful. Let's listen.
Two things that drove so much growth in the earlier stages was the introduction of the depth finder and Buck Perry's concept of structure fishing, and Carl Lawrence with the green box at the time. And of all places for him to really start to develop that, meaning the green box, he started in Illinois through Klein Sporting Goods selling Lawrence depth finders. And Ron and I didn't live 3 blocks from a sporting goods store. We bought one. And in fact, at that point, it was still red. It wasn't green, it was red.
I remember.
The first ones were red.
Yep.
And I don't remember the serial number. I wish I kept it. But it was an early one. And I seen all these fish that he was catching in the chain of lakes in the Chicago area, so they had this depth finder to go through with it. So we were one of the first people with the guides to use depth finders, to expose them to the depth finder. So we had the depth finders, and then the concept of structure fishing, the term structure fishing was just in its development, and we happened to be right on the scene with this breakthrough of Buck Perry, and the depth finders come through, and this concept of fish migrations, fish doing this. It was things that I never dreamed about before, never thought about. You know, the spoon plugging concept. So we bought all these spoon plugs, we bought all of this stuff and tied in with the depth finder and started to catch fish like I never dreamed of catching.
It seems amazing that people would pay, a decent amount of money for what really was a hook, right, and some line and a sinker. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that? Was it because of that allure and the magic of
the sinker,
the fish that were being caught on it?
Well, that was probably the key, the fish being caught on it. And it forced people to take a piece of live bait, drag it on the bottom where a lot of fish lived, and you were going to get bit. It forced them to fish right, is what it did. And in spite of any preconceived thinking, something would start pulling on the end of the line.
Whether they wanted their bait to be down in the fish zone or not, it was going there.
It just made it happen.
Did you hear what Al just said there? Why the Lindner rig was so successful? Because it was the first delivery system, the first presentation system that was out there that forced people to fish the bottom. That's why people started catching fish. As you heard Al say right there, that for the first time ever, people were forced to fish the bottom and they started catching fish. And that's what the Lindner rig exploded, became such a successful thing for the Lindners, and that's really what launched the Lindners in their successful empire business they have now. But it's fishing the bottom. Now, throughout the years, every now and then there seems to be this new hot delivery method that comes up, delivery system that comes up. I remember drop shotting became real popular, and it still is today. You got other things like the Ned rig, and there's many more of them. But think about why each one of these things are so successful. Just like the Lindner rig, drop shotting was another delivery system that made you fish correctly. You had a weight on there. It was actually, drop shot is very similar to the Lindner rig. It forced people once again to fish the bottom. That's why systems like drop shotting became so popular. So you have to just think of everything in terms of depth and speed control. You hear so many people, you turn on any kind of fishing show on TV or even on YouTube, and 99% of the time they're just trying to sell you a product. Just when you look at this stuff, just think of it in terms of depth and speed. What kind of depth and what kind of speed do I want to control? And like we said in the workshop here, all fishing success and all fishing failures are answered by terms of depth and speed control. It's depth and speed control. why you caught fish that day or didn't catch fish that day. Let me give you some tips if you're new getting into this. Probably, without a doubt, the biggest thing you can do, you just read all this information, you looked at all the videos in the workshop, and you read Buck's book and his home study course, and you want to get out there. The best advice I can give you is, if you're just starting out, is go to lakes that have good watercolor. That is the key. If you try starting out on really clear lakes, we said in the workshop here, the clearer the water, the deeper the fish are going to be. The harder they're going to be to catch, the more exact you got to be with your lure presentations. By all means, if you're new, find good watercolor. Start with lakes that have good watercolor. They're going to be easier to figure out, and then you can just, after you get comfortable and you really get into the groove of things, of finding structures, you're getting good. You're really getting good at trolling passes. You're getting good at finding the contact point. You're getting good at getting your anchor position in. Then you can fish lakes with clearer and clearer water. But the first thing I suggest, if you want to go out there, is find lakes that have good watercolor. And then one final thing that Buck Perry always says, he says there are no experts. Buck said that himself, that he is not an expert. He goes, there is just too much to learn. Every year you got to learn something, expand it. Fishing is just a never-ending learning thing. I've been doing this for over 30 years. I've got a long way to go. I'm still learning. And Buck Perry, the father of modern day fishing, he was the first one to say there are no fishing experts. Buck Perry learned all the time. I mean, he was continuously learning. And I wish you much success in your journey out there to become a successful fisherman. And if you need help along the way, you can drop myself an email, or there's also a spoonpluggers forum. Go to spoonplug.net, click on I think a forum, join the forum. You can post and ask a lot of questions on that forum. You'll get a lot of answers, and you'll connect with a lot of other structure fishermen across the country. So wish you success. I'm going to keep on uploading some videos, sharing everything with you guys. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.